Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. All thanks and praises are due to Allah, and prayers and blessings be on our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Welcome my brothers to a new dars from our new series, the Seerah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. I'm very happy to see these beautiful faces. May Allah unite us in Jannah in the company of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So before we start talking about the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, I want all of us to think about why we talk about the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. And from the reasons is number one, because we love Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam. And number two, he is the reason that Allah Azza wa Jal sent for us to allow us to worship the Creator instead of worshipping the creation. And he is the way. If we follow his way, we will go to Jannah insha Allah. And he will intercede for us on the day of judgment. And he cared for his ummah, including every single person in this room. And at the end, we want to follow his example, which can only be done if we learn his sunnah and his seerah. So let us start ala barakatillah. So Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam, Muhammad ibn Abdullah, was born in the neighborhood of Bani Hashim, which was in the city of Mecca, at the year of the elephant. And this year, just to summarize it, it was a year that Abraha al-Habashi, he came with a huge army to destroy Al-Kaaba. And Allah Azza wa Jal saved the people of Mecca and the Kaaba from this evil man. And that year was named the year of the elephant. So Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam was born at that year. He was born on the day of Monday, specifically in the month of Rabi' al-Awwal. But there is a huge dispute between the scholars and the historians on which day in that month he was born. So let us just keep it at the month of Rabi' al-Awwal to not go into the dispute. And according to the Gregorian calendar, he was born in year 571 in the month of April. And it was narrated that his mother said when he was born, she saw from the place that he was born in to the castles of Asham, the castles of the Levant, or modern day Syria and the neighboring countries. So she saw a light coming from the place of birth to that place in Asham. And she sent a messenger to his grandfather, Abdul Muttalib, to deliver the news to him and the glad tidings that his grandson has been born. And he was very happy with the news that he took him to the Kaaba, into the Kaaba. And he made dua to Allah Azza wa Jal, thanking him for the blessing of this child, of this baby. And then he named Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam with the name Muhammad. And this name was not known between the Arab, between the Arabians. It was very rare. And then he was circumcised at the 7th day, because that was the norm of that time. And from the norms of the Arabs, from the norms of the Arabians at that time, to send their children, their babies, to the deserts, in order for a specific family to take care of them, so they can live in a natural environment, away from Mecca and its diseases. And because many people used to come to Mecca for the Kaaba, so there would be a lot of people coming from different places of the Arabian Peninsula, and there would be diseases. So they did not want their babies to die out of these diseases. And they also wanted their children, their babies, to listen to the authentic Arabian dialect. So their dialect would not be problematic when they're going into different places and seeing different people and listening to different people. So they wanted their children to speak authentic Arabic language. And we all know that the wet nurse that he had, this is the terminology used in English, which is the woman that breastfeeds the baby. his wet nurse, we all know that it was Halimah as-Saadiah. And she received Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam, and there was a story behind her being his wet nurse. And we will discuss the story. So Halimah as-Saadiah and her tribe was known to going to Mecca and bringing back babies in order for them to take care of these babies. And before she went there, she discussed in the story how her lifestyle was. And she said that at the time, they were very poor, and that year specifically was drought. So all of their cattle and them themselves were hungry. So what happened is that they were in dire need and they wanted to get support. So they had a convoy and they made a journey to Mecca. And she discussed how her family was so poor that they had a donkey and a camel. And both of them were old and weak. And they also had a small child, a baby at that time. And that baby cried so much at the night that they were not able to sleep. And also they were very hungry and they barely had anything to eat. So with this dire need, they went to Mecca in order for them to get the sustenance that they need, which is bringing back a baby so that family would take care of them, the family of the baby. When they went to Mecca with that journey, with that convoy, being in Mecca, they heard that there was a child named Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, and he was ready to be taken by one of these families. But yet, all of the wet nurses did not want to take that child. Why? Because he was an orphan. He did not have a father. And this was problematic to them because they wanted to have a father so he can sustain the family. He can take care of the expenses of that family. So what happened is all of the wet nurses stayed away from Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam, including Halimah. But then at the end, most of the women, of the wet nurses, they already took a baby, a child. And Halimah was left with no child, with no baby. So she told her husband that, I do not want to go back empty-handed. So let us take this orphan baby. And then the husband replied by saying that maybe Allah can make this baby a blessing for us of what we're doing. So after they took Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam, after they took Muhammad with them, she said that because of the hunger that I had, my breast did not have milk enough for my baby. So when she took Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam with her, she said that she was able to feed the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam until he had enough. And then she was able to feed her own baby until he had enough, and both of them slept. And then she mentioned that from the blessings that they received while having Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam as a baby was that the donkey that they had, which was old and barely walked, while they were going back to the desert, it was going so fast. Yet the people of the convoy were telling her that, is that the same donkey that you came in to Mecca with? And she said, yes, it's the same. So they did not understand how this donkey changed from being weak to being strong and going fast. Another thing is that the camel itself did not have milk in order to provide for this family. It was dry. But yet when Rasulullah ﷺ was with them as a baby, Allah Azza wa Jal provided to them through that camel, and that camel was filled of milk. So her husband and her were able to drink that milk in order for them to sustain themselves. And many, many more blessings were going to the advantage of the family of this wet nurse, Halimah as-Saadiah. And when he became 2 years old, when the Prophet ﷺ became 2 years old, now this breastfeeding has stopped. And she was supposed to take him back to Mecca. And when she took him back to Mecca to his mother Amina, she tried to convince his mother to allow her to keep the son with her, to keep Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam with her. And she said that I fear that he might get the disease of Mecca, which was a disease that was spreading between people at the time. So Amina was convinced and she told her to take the baby back with her to the desert. When Rasulullah ﷺ was only 4 years old, and this was mentioned by Imam Muslim in his Sahih on the authority of Anas ibn Malik radiyallahu anhu, that when he turned 4 years old, Jibreel alayhi salam came to the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam when he was playing with the children. And he put him down to the ground, he opened his chest, and he took out his heart. And he took a piece, a lump of flesh out of that heart, and he said, this is the share of the shaitan, of the devil from you. And he threw it away. And then he bought a gold pot, and that gold pot had Zamzam water, and he cleaned the heart of the Prophet ﷺ with that golden pot, or with that golden tray. He cleaned that heart, and after that he put the heart back again. And Anas ibn Malik radiyallahu anhu, he said that I used to see the mark that was on the chest of the Prophet ﷺ from that incident. And after that, Halimah was very afraid. She feared for the Prophet ﷺ. So she took him back to Mecca. And when she took him back to Mecca, now his mother Amina took care of her child. And she wanted, that was at the 4 years of age, and she wanted to visit the grave of her husband. So she took the Prophet ﷺ and Ayman, which was the servant of Amina, and she also took her guardian, which was Abdul Muttalib. And they all went to Medina, which was at the time called Yathrib, to visit the grave. And after she visited the grave, while they were going back, she became sick and she passed away. So when Rasulullah ﷺ, at the age of 6, he lost his mother. Now his grandfather Abdul Muttalib was very saddened on what happened to his grandson. So when they went back, now Rasulullah ﷺ, Muhammad, he was in the care of his grandfather, and his grandfather loved him more than his actual sons. And he stayed in his care until he reached the age of 8 years old. And at the age of 8 years old, his grandfather passed away. And before he passed away, he asked his uncle Abu Talib to take care of Muhammad alayhi salatu wassalam. And now, at the age of 8 years old, Rasulullah alayhi salatu wassalam, Muhammad ibn Abdullah, was in the care of Abu Talib. So he was under the wing of his uncle. And his uncle treated him with respect and dignity and honor. And he loved him as he loved his actual children. Now what happened next is that when the Prophet ﷺ reached to the age of 12, his uncle wanted it to take him on a journey. Where did he take him next? What happened on that specific journey? And who did he meet? We will inshallah talk about this in the next dars, inshallah. Jazakumullahu khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.